Thanks for joining us here on What Matters This Week. I'm Lauren Maloney. Being with us today is Marilyn Cargill. She is the VSAC Vice President for Financial Aid Services, also works with research and marketing communications. Marilyn, thank you so much for being here.
Lauren, thank you for having me.
There are some important deadlines when it comes to a new early childhood educator funding kind of bill here that the legislature just passed. That's why I wanted to have you on. And this is a tuition-free degree aimed at bolstering childcare and workforce development. If we can, let's start at the need and the issue. What even spurred this bill?
So what this is all about is the legislature is recognizing that we need more childcare providers in this state. You know, if you don't have childcare, then an awful lot of our workforce really can't step in and do their jobs. And so they set up this scholarship to incent students to not only go into the childcare field, but then to work in Vermont following that education.
And I feel like childcare and finding adequate childcare was even an issue before the pandemic. And I know you mentioned in your release here, Allie Richards, who works with Let's Grow Kids. And she kind of hints at a report that shows 5,000 more spaces are needed for each infant, about 1,000 more toddler spots, 2,700 more preschool spaces. So this is critically needed.
Oh yes, this is a critical issue in the state of Vermont. And so the legislature stepped up and said, okay, what can we create to help encourage students to go into this field, but also make it affordable for them to work in this field? And so this program, as you mentioned, provides full tuitions. There are, I believe, 7 or 8 schools, and you can get more information about this at vsac.org/early childhood. But there are 7 or 8 schools that are approved for this funding, and it will cover full tuition at any one of those schools until we have expended all of this money. So this is an excellent opportunity for students. The thing about this money, though, is that it is a forgivable loan, which means we're going to give you the money for full tuition, and you pay that back by working in the state of Vermont for 1 year for each year that you've received the funds in an early childhood educator position at a regulated private or home care center. So it's a really nice opportunity for students who are interested in doing that.
So you do have to give back to Vermont, kind of in the end.
That's right. So the offer that the state is making to you is we will pay your tuition, but in return, you're going to work in one of the child care centers right here in Vermont for 1 year to pay that back. So it's a really good deal for students, but they do want to be confident in their major and confident in where they'd like to work, the location. And that's one of the reasons we're giving preference to upper class students. So we're thinking that a senior in a bachelor's degree or someone who's about to complete their associate's degree is probably a little more confident that that is exactly where they want to work and what they want to do.
Is there no going back? Is that how I'm understanding
it? It's not that there's no going back. It's that if you took these funds and then ended up not working in Vermont or not working in a approved child care center, it becomes a loan. And then you're paying it back with money instead of your time. So what makes this an excellent deal is when you get your tuition paid for, and then it is the loan part of it is just forgiven because you've worked exactly where you wanted to work in the first place.
Okay. Do people have to live in Vermont or be Vermont residents?
No, they don't. Vermont residents absolutely are encouraged to apply for this. But as you mentioned about the numbers you talked about of openings that we have and that we need filled, we need to recruit people outside of Vermont to fill those positions. So if we have out-of-state students that are attending Vermont institutions on that approved list, they can also apply for this money. But they do have to agree to work in Vermont for 1 year following graduation for each year that they receive the scholarship.
Can a qualified person already be on their educational journey when it comes to early childhood education, or do they have to start from the beginning or start from the ground up in order to qualify?
Okay, great question. They can be well into their program. And as I mentioned, we're going to give preference to students who are ready to complete their program. So if we have seniors that are applying for this program, they will receive preference. Juniors would receive preference over sophomores. So you're actually better off to be a little into your program when you apply for this.
First round of applications, Marilyn, are due May 31st. So what are you expecting from people here?
So students can go to vsac.org and to our scholarship page and apply for this. We are anticipating that we'll probably get about 100 applications, and we're assuming that we're going to be able to fund 50 or 60 of those based on how expensive the schools they are attending turns out to be. And it's a pretty simple process. We're looking for them to have filled out a FAFSA, the fee application for federal student aid, the scholarship application, and then there's one essay and one letter of recommendation. That's all there is to this.
How big of a crisis or how important is this issue now, maybe as it, instead of 5 or 10 years ago?
Oh, I think that it's a very critical issue. When you look at the statistics on Let's Grow Kids and Bright Futures, you talk to the staff at the Department of Children and Families, there is a critical shortage of child care providers. And we really need to fill those positions because that's the cornerstone that allows us to fill all of the other positions. So many of our workforce have young children that if they cannot find childcare, even if they're trying to work as a nurse or some other critical occupation, they can't do it unless they can find childcare for those children. So this really is a cornerstone program to make sure that all of the other critical workforce areas that Vermont is facing, that we have people that can step into those jobs as well.
Are you hearing early reaction on this? Is there an excitement? Have you already had people reach out to VSAC?
We've started to receive applications already on this. So yes, there is excitement about this program. We've met with the schools that qualify to use this funding. They are excited about the program. And I think what we really need to do now is just really get it in front of students, because the scholarship process and applying for financial aid has occurred for most students already for this fall semester. So we're a little late to the game. So we need to get this out in front of people right now so that they're aware that even if they're trying to go to school in September, which is what we're hoping, or they're already in school this September, they can still apply for this money and take a big burden off of their cost of education by having the tuition paid for by this program.
Marilyn, I understand when it comes to, this endemic situation, still in the pandemic that we are in, specialties like early childhood education, vocational programs, maybe skilled workers have had such a highlight put to their occupations right now. How has that changed how VSAC kind of works and helps students in the state?
Well, I think the way that you'd see that it's changed really starts at the legislative level as programs have been created to make sure that students have the funding they need to go into those critical occupations. So we have this scholarship that you and I are talking about right now for early childhood educators and early childhood special educators. They both qualify for this funding. There are programs set up to help students go into nursing programs. There's a new program being looked at for the trades. There's critical occupation programs that are offered by the Vermont State Colleges. So funding is being channeled into those careers where we have really seen shortages and where we've seen a real need, especially during this pandemic.
Is there anything I missed? Is there anything else you want our viewers to know when it comes to this?
You know, I think we've covered so much of it. I would just reiterate that this program starts out as a loan. I want to be sure people are clear about that, but you repay it with your work obligation. So if you know you're going into early childhood, and if you're planning to work in Vermont, this is something you should look into. And you can find out more information at vsac.org/early childhood. There's the applications available there. There's a Q&A to help you understand the program with more details. And there's phone numbers there where if you want to, you can give us a call and we would be happy to talk to you about this.
Marilyn Cargill, I appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.